Well, folks, it's funny. Over the past week, it was all about, oh, Danny is this, Andy is this, Sabrina, Bio, Maurice, all that stuff. This week, it seems, is all about good old Gary because of the revelation of his 3 year long relationship with Penelope. And, me digging back through the archives of Sisters itself, going back to season one and, earlier seasons in general and picking apart dialogue and different scenes. But one key scene that has people going, what in the world? It was at the it was towards like the first few episodes into season three when Gary surprised Andy with the wedding of her dreams. And if I remember correctly, Andy stated the wedding he put together was exactly the way she told him that she wanted her dream wedding to be, down to every detail, the dress, the bridesmaid outfits, everything. And the question would have been, okay, if he and Andy got married at that moment, then what? Because at the time, I do believe he had gotten officially divorced from Jasmine, so their marriage would have been quote unquote legit. But it's kind of funny because remember that night, because Andy said not yet, she didn't want to marry him at that moment. But let's be honest here, if it wasn't for Karen blowing up and deciding not to show up, and hey, I stand on what I said back then, Karen was not a bad friend for choosing to leave. She was not a bad friend. Say what you want to. Look, I've said plenty about Karen over the years, but I've always said that was like 1 to 2 moments I was team Karen. Her refusing and making her own choice to not stand by her best friend making what could have been the worst decision of her life, which as we get into the video, I feel like would have been a huge mistake. And then earlier in season 2, when Danny and Andy were trying to guilt trip Karen to getting Zach out of jail, because that's when Zach broke into the hotel room of Karen and Aaron, started a fight with Aaron and got arrested. I'm like, no, Karen did not have to get him out of jail. Zach did that on his own stupidity. Okay, now back to the topic at hand. The question is, if Andy and Gary got married, which again, that day she said no, but then later that night when they were in bed at her place, he couldn't have sex with her because he said he wasn't feeling it because the jealousy and whatnot, thinking of that other guy she had been with, aka Paris the janitor. And then Andy's like, hey, that's not good because, he was like theoretically being a bit violent. Like, I just go jealous and makes me want to just lose it and go wild and stuff. So I was like, well, dang. So what would have happened if y'all got married? Would you have not been able to get it up because you would have been mad? That would have been put a damper on the quote unquote honeymoon night. But in any case, the reason I'm bringing up this question is, if they did get married at the beginning of season 3, would it have been a legit marriage, like a legit wedding, because of the fact that knowing what we know now, like with Penelope, for example, Penelope and Gary have been together for 3 years, which overlaps with his marriage with Jasmine. Then on top of that, I wish they would have given us an exact time frame, because Danny and Sabrina were doing a good job with asking the right questions, because they were trying to put it together a timeline, which, what I do for a living, this would have helped me out a lot. But they did ask, so how long exactly have you two been engaged? And even though a number wasn't given, Penelope stated, we got engaged right before I found out I was pregnant. Now, recently, Karen mentioned, well, hey, you got to put up with me like this for 7 more months, which indicates she's close to, if not at exactly 2 months into her pregnancy, and she's just barely now showing. Given how Penelope looks like she's ready to pop very soon, we can estimate that she's possibly around 6 to 8 months pregnant. Again, I don't really know. I'm just speculating here. But given that fact, let's say he and Andy did get married. That means he still would have been proposed or engaged to Penelope. But given how time works weird in Sisters, where no, every season is not 1 week, that does not make sense. It just makes me wonder. At first, I wanted to compare it to Preston and Danny. Now, remember how Preston proposed to Danny? She turned him down. And then that same ring was used on Mindy when he proposed to her. At first, I was like, well, maybe because Andy did not marry Gary in season 3, he decided to propose to Penelope not long after that. And then, oh, we're pregnant, Gary. That's a interesting way of looking at it. But like I said, because time just works so weird in this show, I don't think that is the case. But then another way to look at it was the fact that, well, you know what? The photographer, because remember, originally Gary introduced Andy to this guy who was a photographer and said, oh, you have the right kind of body and the cheekbones, and could you model some wedding dresses for us, for this magazine and whatnot I work for? But then it turns out, hey, this is a legit photographer or wedding photographer. And the guy standing here, he's actually a, ordained minister who can actually officiate the wedding. And it makes me wonder, would the wedding have been legit? Would it have been a legit wedding? Because I did look into this and I said, in the state of Georgia, can you be married to more than one person? And no, it is illegal. Georgia does not permit or recognize polygamous marriages. And based on the law, it says that the consequences for practicing bigamy or marrying a bigamist in Georgia will be a prison term between 1 and 10 years. And they'll be guilty of a felony, which could mean, 1, this guy was not a legit minister, ordained person with the power to marry Andy and Gary. It could have just been a glorious ceremony. And with Gary having the connections he has, he could have come up with the kind of like how people say, oh, Karen faked the DNA test and got fake results. Gary could have done something like that to get fake paperwork stating that they're married. Because remember, Jasmine stated he likes to control everything, isolate you, the money, control who you talk to, keep you from going out anywhere, keeps you away from your friends and family. So who's to say that while Gary was quote unquote married to Jasmine, that was really his real wife? We don't know. We don't know. Also, when it comes to Andy, after the divorce with Jasmine, if he and Andy got married in season 3, 1, would that have been a legal marriage? 2, would he still have been engaged to Penelope and Lord knows how many other women at the same damn time? We do not know. Dang it, Tyler Perry. You're making me think. This isn't me just sitting up here complaining, but the fact that I have to go back to do this research, I'm actually enjoying it because for once I'm not sitting up here, oh, this is awful, Karen this, Zach that, Fatima. No, it's just I never thought that we would get such intriguing storylines in the show again, focused on non-Zatima affiliated characters, that I would be invested in this. And this gives me real hope for season 7. So with that being said, do you think Gary has multiple wives? Because, it's funny. Everybody was pointing at bio. Oh, African Prince. He probably wants Sabrina to be one of his many wives, but he shot that down saying, I don't have multiple wives or a bunch of kids or anything like that. And yet you have Gary here, and who knows how many women he has that we don't know about, how many quote unquote wives he has we don't know about, how many kids he has that we don't know about, and the fact that in his younger days, like Jordan, he was a professional athlete, most likely meaning that he was traveling all over the place. Who's to say he doesn't have other women, families, or what have you across the country, not just ATL? Maybe he makes a number of business trips that certain women in his life don't know about. So, man, the plot thickens indeed. Let's talk about it in the comments, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.